our entire prediction season has led to this moment. Today, we reveal our 12-team college football playoff predictions here at the Gridiron Expert. A historic moment here at our channel. A historic moment for college football and the first year of this new playoff format. 12 teams fighting for a spot in the national championship, but only one can lift the trophy. Only one can be crowned national champions. And today we're going to tell you exactly who that will be. So let's not delay it any further. Coming in at number 12, it is Selection Monday. We're going to draw this thing out. Coming in at number 12 in our 12-team college football playoff predictions, we've got the Boise State Broncos, champions of the Mountain West. It was a 3-team race among the group of 5 programs. Boise State, Texas State, and Liberty all fighting for a spot in the playoff as the highest-ranked group of 5 champion. But the Broncos ultimately won out, 12-1, champions of the Mountain West. Lone loss to Oregon, having some quality wins on their resume. Tougher strength of schedule than that of Liberty, undefeated in conference play, unlike Texas State. The Broncos get in. We've seen them be giant killers before. We've seen them pull off upsets time and time again. The question is, who will they face as the 5 seed? You'll find out shortly. We're going to go all the way up the list here. Coming in at number 11, Florida State. How about it? The Seminoles finally get in. 1 year after getting snubbed, the Seminoles find themselves in the college football playoff as the ACC runner-up. They will fall to Clemson in the ACC championship, but the Seminoles do finish 10-3, only losses to Clemson in the ACC title game, and then road losses to Miami and to Notre Dame. Making the ACC title game, another accomplishment for Mike Norvell's squad. That defense is going to be elite this year. They get in and now have a chance to redeem themselves and try to avenge themselves after wrongly, some would say, being left out of the 4-team playoff just last season. In at number 10, the Utah Utes. Time and time again, the Utes have had very powerful teams under Kyle Whittingham, never able to get over the hump in the Pac-12. Sure, a few Pac-12 titles here and there, but never making the college football playoff. Now it has expanded to 12 teams, and they make it at 10-2 in their first year in the Big 12. In at number 9, the Michigan Wolverines, the reigning national champions. 10-2, only losses to Texas and Ohio State. The Wolverines will have one of the best defenses once again in the entire country, and we do believe they will work out any issues they may have on offense as the season progresses. This team will be dangerous once again, of course, if they can block out all the noise surrounding their major NCAA investigation happening in Ann Arbor right now. But the national champions from last year will have a shot to make it back-to-back if they can take down the 8 seed, Alabama Crimson Tide. So how about that? A rematch of last year's Rose Bowl, rematch of last year's college football playoff semifinal game, an epic win for Michigan in overtime. They'll get a rematch in Tuscaloosa. Remember, the first round matchups will be held on campus. Michigan at Alabama, the first one we can finally put together here. The Crimson Tide making the playoff in their first year under Kalen DeBoer, first year without Nick Saban. The Tide still have one of the best quarterbacks in the country in Jalen Milroe. Still have a very, very strong defense with the exception of the secondary, which will get better as the year goes on. They do find themselves in at 10-2 in that epic rematch, getting to host now Michigan. At number 7, how about an independent? Notre Dame. The Fighting Irish, going 11-1, will find themselves hosting a college football playoff game. Will be hosting the Utah Utes, the 10 seed. Notre Dame adds Riley Leonard in from Duke. Very, very, very good transfer quarterback if he can stay healthy. The Fighting Irish will have one of the best defenses in the entire country. Defense wins championships. That game against Utah, probably going to be a very low-scoring game. 2 of the best defenses in the country this year. Should be a fun one in South Bend. We have them at 11-1, losing to A&M in the opener, but not losing a game after that. In at number 6, the Texas Longhorns, the SEC runner-up, losing to Georgia in the SEC championship game. Texas, guys, was 1 play away from the national championship last year. They will thrive in their first year in the SEC, a much more manageable schedule than, say, that of Oklahoma, the other SEC newcomer. They have one of the best quarterbacks in the country in Quinn Ewers. They're going to have a very underrated defense once again, and they have a reloaded wide receiver core through the transfer portal. Really, really like this Texas team to be a national title contender. They're in at number 6 and will be hosting Florida State. In at number 5, the Big Ten runner-up, the Oregon Ducks. a true national title contender under Dan Lanning. They are loaded on both sides of the ball. Dylan Gabriel comes in at quarterback from Oklahoma. They have one of the best defense in the country. So much speed on the offensive side of the ball. This Oregon team is extremely, extremely dangerous. Some would say they are, in fact, the best team in the Big Ten. It truly will come down to Ohio State and Oregon for that title. The Ducks just miss out, losing in the Big Ten championship to the Buckeyes, but in at number 5, and will host Boise State in a rematch of a Week 2 matchup. Now we get into the first round byes. In at number 4, Kansas State, coming in as the Big 12 champions. The Wildcats won the Big 12 just a few years ago under Chris Kleiman. They're going to win it again this year. Dangerous running duo of quarterback Avery Johnson and DJ Giddens. They've got a very, very good defense per usual under Kleiman. Absolutely loves this team. Big 12 wide open this year with teams of Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Utah, teams like that. But it's the Wildcats that will take home the crown and clinch a first round bye. So will Clemson. May surprise many, but the Tigers, I believe, are the best team in the ACC. They get a first round bye as the 3 seed champions of the ACC. Cade Klubnik returning at quarterback. Garrett Riley returning as their offensive coordinator, hoping to find things clicking there. But the Tigers, once again, will have a very strong defense. The offense, we assume, will take that step forward. The schedule, relatively manageable, with the exception of that season opener against Georgia and maybe that road game at Florida State. We believe the Tigers can overcome a few of those. We believe they can ultimately win the conference. If they do that, they will get that first round bye. That's exactly where we have them. Then in at number 2, it is the Big Ten champion, the Ohio State Buckeyes. They come in at number 2, leaving Georgia in at number 1 as the SEC champions. More on them in a second. But those are the 12 teams that have made the 12-team college football playoff here at the Gridiron Expert. You pull up the updated bracket for our playoff, and you can see some very exciting matchups that we kind of alluded to as we were releasing the teams. We'll go on the left side and transfer over to the right as we progress through. Alabama and Michigan in Tuscaloosa in that Rose Bowl rematch from last year. I think that's a fantastic game. Both teams now dealing with brand new head coaches, 2 teams that look completely different than they did last year. Getting to play this game now on campus should be a very, very intriguing matchup. The winner of that getting Georgia, and we do believe Alabama will get the win over the reigning national champions. So you'll set up a Georgia-Alabama game, a rematch of that Week 4, Week 5 matchup, also in Tuscaloosa. This now will be at a neutral site. We'll touch more on that game in a second. But Georgia and Alabama facing off in the quarterfinals. And remember, some will be against seeing conference matchups in the college football playoff. Some will be against seeing rematches from the regular season in the college football playoff. That is inevitable. It is going to happen. When you have a playoff with multiple teams in it from the same conference, it's inevitable that at some point you're going to see a rematch or a conference matchup in the playoff. It's going to happen time and time again, and we have that happening multiple times in this year's playoff. Below that, Oregon and Boise State. That's a rematch right there. Some would argue that Texas should be the 5 seed and Oregon should be the 6 seed. I would disagree. I believe Oregon does beat Boise State in the regular season. I also have Oregon beating Ohio State in the regular season. That gives them 2 wins just in the regular season alone over teams that we have in the college football playoff. Yes, they would lose to Ohio State in the Big Ten championship, but still, it's 2 wins over college football playoff teams. Oregon getting the edge slightly over Texas for that 5 seed, even if it does mean we have to see a rematch of them against Boise State in Eugene. I had them winning in Week 2. I had them winning again now in the college football playoff. So Oregon advances, take on Kansas State in the quarterfinals. How about that? The Ducks offense versus Kansas State's defense at a neutral site for the shot in the semifinals. We'll touch more on that in a second, but a very intriguing matchup there, more so in the quarterfinals than we would see in the first round. On the right side, number 7, Notre Dame hosting Utah. We mentioned that. Potential low-scoring game here. Love the matchup of Riley Leonard taking on Cam Rising. I love the battle of these 2 defenses. You've got a veteran coach in Kyle Whittingham versus a younger coach in Marcus Freeman. Has only been on the job for Notre Dame for a few years now. But South Bend is going to be rocking for this game. The winner getting to take on Ohio State. We saw Notre Dame and Ohio State have an epic showdown at South Bend just last year. A few years ago, we saw Utah and Ohio State have an epic Rose Bowl matchup. So whoever wins the battle between the Fighting Irish and the Utes should put up a very good fight against the Buckeyes. But ultimately, I do believe it is Notre Dame that wins, defends home field. I like their defense a lot. I think they're able to slow down Cam Rising, assuming he can stay healthy. Notre Dame advances to take on Ohio State in the quarterfinals. And then Texas and Florida State, the other first-round matchup in Austin. What a matchup this will be. Florida State, as we mentioned, finally making the playoff after missing out last year, wrongfully so, some would say. Texas, one play away from the national championship, now hosting the game as the 6th seed in their first year in the SEC. I do believe, though, they do take down Florida State. The Longhorns' offense is much better than that of Florida State's. Their defense can match the Seminoles, no doubt about it. Home field advantage plays a big role here. Texas advances to take on Clemson in the quarterfinals. So those are your quarterfinals. Yes, we have the higher seed winning all of the first round games, but I don't really think they can be disputed much. Definitely feel confident about every single one of those picks. Now, things change a little bit in the quarterfinals, though. I do believe Georgia gets by Alabama. It will be close. It will be very close. But I believe Georgia beats Alabama in Tuscaloosa in the regular season. You put this game now at a neutral site. I still like the Bulldogs in this one. If I can't pick Alabama to win it in Tuscaloosa, I'm definitely not going to pick them to win it on a neutral site. I believe Georgia, as we've seen from the AP poll, currently is the best team in the country. That will stand at least for another week as they move on to the semifinals. Kansas State and Oregon. We mentioned that fun defensive matchup of Kansas State against that of Oregon's offense, but I've got the Ducks winning this one. The lower seed as the 5 seed, they'll take down the Big 12 champions to take on Georgia in the semifinals. Oregon simply has too much, and we like to talk so much about the Ducks offense. Do not sleep on their defense. They have what it takes to win a national championship. They get past Kansas State. On the other side, we mentioned Ohio State, Notre Dame. Put them in a neutral site. This is a very fun game here. Both offenses should be clicking at this point, although Ohio State certainly owns the edge there. Both defenses going to be very, very strong. So Notre Dame kind of on the side of the bracket here where they're going to face teams that have defenses that are just as good as theirs. Notre Dame going to find themselves in relatively low-scoring games. And in low-scoring games like that, I like to go with the team that has the better offense, the one that I think can break free for one big play, and that is that of Ohio State. The Buckeyes simply are too good. Will Howard in at quarterback, not sure why he's getting all the hate he's getting. You've got Quinshaw Judkins, got a great wide receiver core. This Ohio State team is loaded from top to bottom, going all in for a national championship. They keep those hopes alive as they move on to the semifinals, where they'll take on Texas. Clemson's not a bad team, guys. They're not. And Dabo Swinney's been in this situation before. He's been in the playoff before. He's got multiple national championships. But the Longhorns simply are too good. Quinn Ewers over Kate Klubnik every day of the week. I ultimately think this Texas offense, once again, significantly better than that of Clemson's. The defense, both teams have one that's pretty solid, but you could argue that Texas might even have the slight edge in this game. Put them on a neutral site. Texas is the better team. The Longhorns, despite being the 6th seed, they, quote-unquote, upset the 3, which means our semifinal matchups, number 1 Georgia versus number 5 Oregon, number 2 Ohio State versus number 6 Texas. Now again, you could argue that Texas and Oregon should be flipped. Maybe Texas should have played Boise State. Maybe Oregon should have played Florida State. They should switch those seeds. Here's the thing. I still would have had both these teams in the semifinals. I believe Texas would defeat Boise State and Kansas State. I believe Oregon would defeat Florida State and Clemson. If you did that, you would then have a rematch of the SEC championship in semifinal 1 and a rematch of the Big Ten championship in semifinal 2. This does not allow that. This allows for Dan Lanning to take on his former team. Dan Lanning, the former defensive coordinator at Georgia, to face off against the Bulldogs here. Kind of Kirby Smart, the master, taking on the apprentice in Dan Lanning. It allows Ohio State to take on Texas. 2 great teams from top to bottom that had national championship expectations but have fallen short of those year after year after year. So this is going to be an epic semifinal, epic 4-team college football playoff once it's finally condensed. But I got to go with Georgia over Oregon. Got to go with the Bulldogs here. They are the most complete team, I think, by far in the nation right now. Kirby Smart's defense slows down Oregon's offense and gets by just barely in the semifinal to advance back to the national championship after missing out on the playoff last year. Ohio State will take down Texas in semifinal number 2. Both offenses are electric. One could argue Texas even owns a slight edge, but it is Ohio State that owns that defensive edge and will come through with the play when it matters the most. And so maybe it's anticlimactic for some, maybe it's too boring for some, but the top 2 teams in the country heading into the preseason, Georgia number 1, Ohio State number 2, are exactly who I have in the national championship right now. It'll be Georgia versus Ohio State for the national championship. Who takes it home? Will it be Ohio State, who who finally went all in and finally got over the hump for Ryan Day? Or will it be Georgia, who wanted a three-peat last year, fell just short, but is now looking to start a new streak? Should be a fantastic matchup and a fantastic way to conclude an epic 12-team playoff and an epic 2024 season. But I ultimately am going with the Georgia Bulldogs to win the national championship. Kirby Smart's Bulldogs will be back on top of the college football world. Georgia goes coast to coast, number one to start the year, number one to end the year. And this 12-team playoff comes to a close in what I think will be an epic addition, a fantastic addition to college football. I'm a fan of the format. I'm a fan of these matchups. Can't wait to see how it all plays out. Leave your thoughts below. Let us know what your playoff predictions would be based on this bracket, but also what your own are, right? What are your own predictions? We don't all have to agree on this, guys. The season's going to be starting here in just a few days. Starts just this week. Then we will truly find out who's in here in just a few months. But this is who we've got right now. Georgia over Ohio State, kings of the college football world. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and of course, check out everything down in the description below. That includes our website, thegridironexpert.com, home of those expert picks, some of the best college football and NFL spread picks in the entire country. Go check that out. Become a member of our GE Nation, again, down in the description below. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.